Hi, everybody. John Farian here with LiveLARGE Universe. We've got a great show for you tonight. And as you guys come in, make sure you drop in the comments and let us know where you're watching from and what you've been up to this weekend. Have you been out snowmobiling yet? Have you not? Tell me how you spent your weekend in the chat. Let me know where you're watching from, and that'll help me see who's out and watching as well too. So come on in, enjoy the time with us tonight, and while you're doing that, feel free to share the show out, because as you share the show out, we're going to be able to get you guys in on our show sponsors, Fly Racing Snow. They've put up some Zone Pro snow goggles. These are some amazing goggles. I've been riding with them for quite a few years now, and these are my absolute favorites. And so I actually have this exact color along with a few of the others, but $99.95 value just for getting in here, watching the show, sharing the show out. But sharing the show out will get you in to enter to win these amazing goggles. And so again, we got a great show with you tonight. Thank you to the sponsors of the show. So Owen and Michelle is going to be with us tonight. And so Owen and Michelle, if you guys want to come off of mute, go ahead and do that now. And we're going to say hi. Give me just 1 second to reconfigure the screen, because with both you guys in one place together, I've got it set up where you guys are the big guys, and I'm going to be the little one down here in the corner. So this is me down in the corner now, everybody. Appreciate you guys being here, and we've got a live audience rolling in now. So tell us a little bit about yourselves. So who do we have here? Owen, introduce yourself quick. Let us know who you are.
Well, I'm Owen Labadie, and I'm a 16-year-old that's been very fortunate throughout my life. Um, I've been riding sleds for a while now, and I really love to ride. And I feel it's just a great experience.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so you've been snowmobiling for a long time, pretty much your whole life, right?
Yes.
Yep. And we're going to let everybody get to know you a little bit too. And we've got a big surprise tonight about an experience you guys recently had that we're going to share with the world too. But Michelle,
Yeah.
you and I have known each other on Facebook for quite a few years in a row now. I think so. Previous guests that I've had, you and I kind of got connected and interacted that way. And then we've had the honor of meeting each other at Heydays over the years a couple of different times too. And we've been able to hug it out a couple times, which has been amazing. So it's great when I can see people from across the country in person at these amazing events. But tell us hi and tell us a little bit about yourself, Michelle.
Hi, I am Michelle Labadie. I have also been raised on snowmobiles. From the time I was a little kid, I went to Heydays with my dad to hunt old sleds. Back in those days, I didn't realize what the new sleds even were. Of course, the new sleds back then were a little bit different than they are now, too. So yeah, Hades has been a long-standing tradition amongst my family and stuff. It didn't get to go for many years, but until I got older, and then I started getting back into it again, and I started getting more involved in snowmobile groups and Facebook and all that kind of stuff. And that's how I got to know who, John Farian was. And yeah, and it's fun how we all stay connected through it, even though we're on all different parts of the country. And
Yeah.
that's the really awesome part about this, the snowmobile family.
Yeah, no, it's so amazing to be able to kind of like, meet people virtually first through the show. And, I mean, at this point, I've been doing this for 4.5 years, this show. And, we've had the honor of having a lot of amazing guests on. And, that helps us to network and connect with people and get to know each other a little bit virtually. And then when it all comes together at a live event like Heydays, and we're coming literally from the East Coast to the West Coast, and everybody's meeting in the middle. And a lot of people know, too, like I grew up in Minnesota. And so, I spent quite a few years going to Heydays. I lived close by. From one point, I think I lived within about 30 minutes of the North Branch Heydays, at the time that it was over there. And I moved to Washington here back in 2012. And for the first, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years, I don't think I went back. But at one point, I pulled the trigger and decided to fly back out. And now I've been going back every single year since. It's a great time to get to see all your sled friends around the country. So.
It is, and we're also pretty fortunate that we get to live in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan.
Yeah. Tell us
So,
specifically like what town, what community are you guys in the Upper Peninsula, and tell us a little bit about that community as far as like Upper Michigan. A lot of people know it as this like Midwest snowmobile mecca where you get almost like mountain-like snow in the Midwest. And so tell us a little bit about your community. So.
we do. We actually live in Gladstone, which is
Okay.
sort of known as the banana belt of the Upper Peninsula.
Okay.
We're in the southern border, or the upper part of Lake Michigan. Um, So we kind of get the benefits of both worlds. It's super nice in the summer. We don't shovel a lot, but we are not far from the snow.
That's awesome.
We have our family. My husband's family has a cabin in this one of the snowmobile capitals, which is or close to it, which is considered Grand Marais,
Yeah.
closer to Lake Superior. We've had, we have Copper Harbor. We have the Keweenaw Peninsula. It's very well known for their snow totals, and so we're kind of blessed that way. We have quite a lot of snow, but we don't have all the avalanches.
Yeah.
So the unfortunate part is we also don't have the big mountains to climb either. So
Yeah.
Which let's dive into that a little bit, because part of the story that we're going to tell tonight, and Owen, rumor has it that you were invited to go out and ride with a specific professional snowmobiler that may or may not be one of the biggest names in the industry. So tell us a little bit about who you got to go riding with and about that experience a little bit. Let's go ahead and dive into that. So
Yes, I was invited by Polaris to go ride with Chris Burandts,
okay.
a very big top dog.
Your idol.
The experience of meeting him was phenomenal. There's no other way to explain it except
Yeah.
it was awesome, great, best guy I ever met and talked to, and the experience for him.
Yeah.
The seeing his shop and all that and getting to ride with him, awesome experience. 100% do it again.
So your mom actually forwarded me an email with a little link in it that was a video clip of a video invitation, personalized video invitation to you to come ride with them. Tell me a little bit about that video, and when you first saw that, what your reaction was.
My reaction to that was, is this real?
I know, right? He must be talking about some other Owen, right? Like, it can't be me.
Yeah, like this. No way, this is me.
Yeah. Nope, that's amazing. And so this was just last season, right? Just to be clear, like this happened. And
yes,
when
last
did you get to
April.
go ride with him? It was in April, you said, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And so when did you get the invitation versus April? Like, was it like right before April, in March or February, or like what time roughly did you get it? Do you remember how many months it was lead time, or weeks it was lead time?
Well, honestly, Mom had to keep the secret for several months.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because it was meant to be a surprise, as kind of a make a wish, make the dream happen kind of thing for Owen. So, it was kind of a super big deal for me to, and all of that, keep it a secret and stuff. But he found out, I think it was a couple of weeks before we actually went.
Okay.
We tried to make it as close to when we were actually going as possible, because he wasn't jumping out of his skin like
for too many months in advance, right? So it was only a couple of weeks. You had to kind of build the anticipation. So you've referenced it slightly here, and I'm going to kind of tee it up, and then we'll come back to it. But I mean, you mentioned this was kind of an experience, kind of almost like a Make-A-Wish type of experience for Owen. And I found out through this interaction that we had at Heydays and through learning about this story that Owen was diagnosed with a very rare disease, eye disease, right? And so let us know what the name of that disease is, and we'll come back to it and go into more detail on that after we talk about the Chris Burandts experience. But why this is important, let's make sure we talk about that for just a minute. So
it's called fever. It's a genetic disease.
Okay.
And it causes retinal detachment.
Okay.
Basically, when he was very young, we actually took him to get some pictures of his eyes and the Lions Club, and they sent us a letter that said we needed to go get him tested.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it all started.
Okay.
And it took several years to kind of figure things out, but come to find out he has this very rare genetic eye disease that does cause retinal detachment.
Yeah.
And it was already fairly bad in his right eye.
Okay.
And so since he's been we figured it out when he was about 7 or 8, I would say about 7.
Okay.
And then that's when his surgeries and stuff started.
Okay.
And so, and his treatments and stuff. It just so happens that his doctor, the main doctor on this very rare disease, he's kind of like the rock star there too, because it's so rare that when he comes, they kind of like flock to him.
Yeah, like special treatment. You're kind of like the Chris Brandt of fever eye disease, is what I'm hearing. So.
Yeah.
Sort of something like that.
Awesome. Well, let's circle back to that in a little bit, and we'll talk more about like how that disease has impacted you in your life and what that means to you. But let's talk a little bit more about this Chris Brandt story, because now you've gotten notice of this. 2 weeks you've got to go by. So talk about the anticipation of getting ready to go to ride with Chris Brandt. What do you got to do? Do you got to like, just talk me through it. Like, what was that 2 weeks like, and what did you have to do to prepare for it? And then how did you get there? Let's talk about the journey of getting there.
Okay. Well, the anticipation of it, I was already jumping at the bits
I
and
bet.
super, super anxious and all that. What we did to get ready and all, I'm pretty sure we packed it, maybe a few gloves if we needed to, and maybe a suit in case.
Yeah.
And for Tubi, from Tubi's wear,
Okay.
Tubi gear. And we packed our suitcases, grabbed clothes and whatever we needed for the couple days.
Okay.
And then we got in the truck and headed to the airport.
Okay, I was just wondering, like, did you guys drive out or did you fly out? So it sounds like you had to jump on a plane and fly out there. And who in the family all got to go? Was it just you, or did other people go with you?
No, it was me, my mother, and my dad.
That's awesome. Let's give your dad a shout out. He's not on camera with us here too, but let's share a little shout out for your dad. And did he enjoy the experience as well?
Yes, I think he did, and I'm pretty sure he should be watching right now. So.
Very cool. All right, what's your dad's name? Let's tell the world what your dad's name is.
Vallier-Labadie.
Vallier-Labadie. Awesome. Mm-hmm. All right, and so you jump on the plane, and then what? Like, what's the plane ride like? Is it quick and easy? Did you have to like jump a couple of planes? I mean, Chris Brandt's kind of in rural Colorado, right? And so did you fly into Denver, or where'd you go?
We flew into Minnesota. We flew into Minneapolis and then Denver.
Then Denver. Okay, so you had to have a layover flight quickly in Minneapolis, got to Denver, and then what happened in Denver? Did you guys rent a car? Did you guys get picked up? What happened then?
We rented a car, and then we went straight to his cabin. Pretty sure.
Actually, Polaris had everything totally and completely set up. We didn't have to worry about a thing. All we had to do was get ourselves to the airport in Green Bay.
Yeah.
And then everything else just flowed from there.
It's amazing.
Right from the time we landed in Denver, we just had to go get our rental car, which they had all set up for us. Tubi had actually contacted us because they didn't want us to have to bring a whole bunch of stuff. So we actually met our friends, Jeremy, and they hooked us up with the stuff we needed, except for we brought a couple things with us just to make sure, in case sizes or whatever,
Yeah.
But, they hooked us up with stuff we needed to ride, and we went right to Buena Vista to Chris's place after that.
Yeah.
And then from there it was the star treatment, basically. So
very good. So I'm picturing you probably in some. Were you in an SUV or something like that? Does that sound right? I mean, or what kind of vehicle did you guys roll in?
We think we were in a Ford Escalade or something like that.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking it was probably something pretty cool. So, and I'm sure you're driving up the road into Burandts Chris's Burandts Backcountry Adventures, and when you first rolled in and got out of the vehicle, was Chris right there to greet you, or did you meet him a little bit later that night?
We met him actually just walking right into it.
All right.
Walking right into his garage.
Yep. And what was your initial interaction with Chris like? Was it high fives? Was it hugging it out? Was it a handshake? Tell about like that first few minutes of getting to meet Chris in person. And it's probably have you seen him before at like heydays, or was this the first time you literally ever met him?
This is the first time I literally ever met him.
So tell me about that. Tell me about that moment.
Big dream come true, and it's very, very exciting moment.
Yep.
We did a pretty good handshake and a hug, and then he decided to tour me on his garage, and all of his sleds,
I bet.
And then
I've seen videos of his garage tour, but what's it like in person, being able to walk through the garage and see all the amazing sleds he's got in that garage?
unbelievable.
I know, right? It's like a kid in a candy
I can
store.
try. Oh, even better.
Yeah, and this is coming from you,
Get in
who
a
like
toy store.
literally you're in a snowmobile museum surrounded by amazing sleds all the time, right? Instead of be able to go there and have that experience and to see all the sleds was, I bet, even more amazing. So okay,
Hmm.
and so at some point you get to. I mean, anything about the shop tour that stands out to you? Anything you want to share as a highlight of your garage tour before you started seeing maybe the rest of the facility, or what was the rest of the facility like?
Um. Well, he started up his triple for us
Ah,
and all that. So we got to hear that.
very
That
cool.
was pretty cool. Um. And well, he gave us the rest of the tour through the garage and whatnot, and he actually gave us through a tour through his house.
Okay,
It's inside his actual house, and it's pretty nice. I like it.
I bet.
It's pretty big.
And you get to see his elk,
Yeah, his elks and all that on the walls.
meet the kids and his wife.
Yep.
Very cool.
Got to meet the family too, so that was super great
Very
because
cool.
his son's only just a little bit younger than Owen. So
Okay. And at the time that you guys were there as a family, were you the only ones on site at the time? Was it kind of like post season for him, and it wasn't like he wasn't sure had clients in the area, or did he?
no, it was
No.
just us. It was
Wow.
just us and a few other people from Polaris. They also had their film person that was there.
Okay.
Yep.
So when they were filming us as we came in, and then they interviewed us and all of that stuff too. So
Yeah.
this whole time they were doing the little video and stuff
Okay.
and everything about
Okay.
the whole
Did
thing.
the
So,
video and the experience get like shared out somewhere? Like, did players post it somewhere? Is it on a YouTube channel somewhere, or like, where can people find that? Or is
that
it
is still to come. So
Okay.
that's still still a surprise is
Ooh.
coming.
So this show here is like
Yeah.
behind the scenes footage, right, Owen? Like, is that what we got going on now? It's
Yes.
like the main show's coming out, but now we get to talk about it behind the scenes. So very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, so you
I
got
think
the whole
one
plate.
of the fun.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh,
Please. Nope. Go
I
ahead.
think one of the fun things about the garage tour was, watching Chris give Owen the tour of his sleds and stuff. But Chris wanted to know what Owen thought about his sleds and which ones were his favorite, and
Yeah,
which one he thought was his favorite and stuff like that. And
that's awesome.
so like this is like we're standing there like drooling, and I'm thinking I'm an adult and he's the kid who's in the candy store here.
I know, right?
You know?
Very cool. Very cool. And so, was it you got a good night's sleep? I would imagine you had dinner together, and then next morning got up
Yeah.
and went riding, or what was the next? When did you go riding the next morning?
Um. Later, after lunch, sometime after lunch.
Oh, the same day that you
that-
arrived. Okay, so you arrived
Yeah.
in the morning. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was in the morning. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And at that point, do you go from Burandts place? Are you able to just ride right from there, or do you have to trailer up the hill to go unload?
No, we had to trailer up to go to there. I rode in his dragon with
Okay.
him.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you say dragon, what do you mean exactly? Is that a vehicle, or what is
His, yes, that's his go-to trailer truck
that? Gotcha.
to
Gotcha.
tow his sleds and stuff.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah, we got to ride in the truck all by, with just him and Chris up there,
okay,
up to
cool.
the mountain.
And where was mom and
Yeah.
dad at this point? In the second vehicle following, or what?
Yeah, we were
Yeah.
following. So
Gotcha, gotcha. So it's just you and Chris Brandt hitting the mountains, heading up the trail, and getting ready to unload. And did you get to pick what sled you rode, or did they already have one loaded up for you and ready to ride?
No, I got to pick.
What'd you pick? Well, tell me what you picked.
I picked the brand new 2023 9R.
Dude. I'm a little jealous. Like, I'm a ski guy, and I'm still jealous, right? And so you're on basically a pre-production or prototype or whatever you want to call it, like his personal 900R or his 9R new sled
Yes.
that's not even out yet, that nobody's ridden, and you're invited on this trip. You get to hang out with one of the coolest dudes in the planet, and you get to ride the coolest sled on the planet. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I think this is a little unfair. Like, the rest of us poor saps out here in the world, all we're wishing were you right now. So
Yes. Mind if I tell you a little bit about that sled?
please do.
That sled blew my expectations out of the water. I had high expectations for it, but it completely blew him. The amount of torque it had compared to regular sleds and
Yeah.
all that was astonishing. I couldn't be even more happier with that. The maneuverability too with that type of chassis.
Yeah.
Oh, that was dreamy. Even better than the Matrix.
Way better than that old sled behind you on the showroom floor behind you there.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely better. Definitely better than that one.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So awesome. So what was the snow conditions like in April? I would imagine it was kind of spring snow, kind of a hard snow, or did you have some good powder to ride in, or
Yeah.
what?
We found a few spots in the trees and all of that, but yeah, it was pretty spring snow
Okay.
and stuff. So
Yeah. Well, just talk us through the day. Like you're on the sleds, you got out there, you jumped on the sleds, you got to ride the 9R, no big deal, right? And here you are out in the snow. And so then what? Did you guys travel in very far? Mom and Dad rode with you guys. Did you break up into different groups? Tell me about the day a little bit. So.
we got ready to go and we headed up to the top of the mountain. And when we got up to the top of the mountain, he was talking to us
Okay.
because we just got to the top and stuff. Stopped for a second and started talking to us a little bit and his rules and whatnot. Like, no one passes me, no one goes in front of me, and all that. And he said, also was talking about Mom. Hey, woman, you are fast around the trails and all that. Because he was all out. She was right behind him the whole time.
Was she trying to outrun Chris Brandt? Is that what's going on?
No, she wasn't trying to outrun him, but she was with him.
What was she? You know what the word dangling is, right? Like the old, side hill and dangling. Was she dangling or no? No.
No.
So Mom,
I was
go ahead.
trying to hang in there.
Right. And where was Dad? Was Dad at the back of the pack trying to keep up? What's going on, or what was going on?
No, he was right with us, right with all of us and stuff. He was in the pack and all, but he stayed kind of like in the middle-ish
Yeah.
and stuff. And we all rode together for a lot of it. And then after the talks and his rules and whatnot, he said, all right, Owen, we're going to go work on a few things real quick.
Okay.
The basics, truly, and make sure I have good basics and all that.
Okay.
So we go up to this little side of the hill and we work on that for a little bit. And I do dare say he was pretty impressed in my abilities.
Very good. Did he call you a flatlander at any point in time? You know what that means?
No.
Did
No,
anybody-
I know what that
All right. Because yeah, I mean, like I've lived. It was so funny because I grew up in Minnesota, and so I first moved to New Hampshire, and I was in New Hampshire, and people there were calling Midwest people the Flatlanders, and I'm like, dude, you guys barely got mountains out here, like these low level mountains and stuff. And then I move out west, and it kind of the same thing. Like they like to call people Flatlanders,
Yeah.
and they're not used to riding in the mountains. So.
Yeah.
All right. So you were pretty good riding for a Flatlander, it sounds like. And
Yeah.
so did you ride just that afternoon, or did you ride a second day also, or no?
No, we just rode with him that day.
Okay.
Bonfire.
Yeah, we had a bonfire with him.
Very cool.
We had good food to eat and
Yeah.
all that at the bonfire. It was a very, very good experience.
All right.
You did the
Well,
trees first.
Go ahead. What's that, Mom?
Oh, I was just talking about how we talked about one of the things that we talked about after in the day is Chris kind of told a little bit about this day and stuff, but it was fun watching them because Chris would go over the stuff with them because Chris really wanted to focus and make sure that he was getting the fundamentals right and
Good.
stuff because he didn't want to have him to get in a situation where he had to come back and try to fix things later, like myself or as a lot of us.
Well, if I'm
especially
if I'm Chris Brandt, I just don't want Owen to wreck my brand new 9R. That's why I want to teach you how to ride so that you don't smash my 9R into the trees. Like honestly, that he's probably being a little selfish and thinking like this kid Owen, he's a pretty good ripper, but like I don't want him to smash up my sled, so I'm going to teach him how to ride it. So. Is that what happened? Or no?
Good too.
Very good.
Right. One of the things I think, they were pleasantly surprised. He's pretty good little ripper. Coming from Michigan and
That's awesome.
being 16 and he's got he's got good throttle control and patience and. Next thing I know, as we're watching him, I'm like, Chris Brandt's leading. And the next thing I know, I'm like, wait a minute.
That's Owen.
Owen's leading.
Oh, there you go.
That's Owen's like going through the trees first.
It's like breaking the rules. You're supposed to follow Chris, he said. Right?
Yeah.
Owen's like, I'm going to set the rules. I'm going to set the rules. I know what I'm doing. So what do you think was the highlight of the day? I know it was an amazing day overall, but what if you had to pick like one part of the day, that first full day with Chris and the whole family there, what really stood out to you as like the most, memorable moment of the day? So
I think the most memorable moment of the day was when me and him were side hilling right next to each other when we were like this, right by each other, going up a hill.
That was one of the pictures that I shared, was like the two of you guys on a side hill like that and giving each other a high five. Was that time that you're talking about? Right about then? Yeah. Yep. That's pretty cool. Very cool. Very cool. So is there anything else about your experience with Chris Brandt that you want to make sure you highlight before we start shifting the story over to maybe some more of Mom's point of view here? So.
No, not really. It's just an overall great experience.
Is it safe to say that was probably the best day of your life so far?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty cool when you can have such a cool day that you can stand out. Like, I don't know if I'm 48 years old, and I don't know that I could tell you the best day of my life, because there's so many great days. But when you have one that stands out like that, like, that's pretty impressive. So congrats and congrats. Yeah. And so, like, I want to shift gears a little bit, Michelle, and kind of come over to you and say, we talked a little bit about it. We're going to go into it a little bit more depth here in a minute. But, like, for now, let's talk a little bit about proud mom, proud parent, right? Like, oh my gosh, the ability to have this experience and to be there with your son to watch this day unfold. Like, talk about like what you were thinking and the emotions that you were feeling as you watched this whole day unfold, like from the morning, like flying out and the excitement and watching Owen, and like, especially knowing that Owen has this rare disease that's life impacting, right? And what this moment in time really means for you personally as a mother, to this amazing son, and for your family overall. Just like talk through that from a parent's point of view, please.
It's so hard to even put it in words, because, as a parent, that, what you just want your kids to be safe. You want them to be happy. You want them to be able to enjoy their life. And, when they're faced with different challenges and stuff, you just do your best to try to help them, get through all of that. And when all of this started, this is all stuff that we would have never, ever asked for, kind of stuff. It was just kind of life, and it just was like, when this ball started rolling, we were like, holy cow, it was just so overwhelming. And yet it's so, it's the feelings and the emotions and just the feeling of, wow, all these people really care. All these people are really, how much people care and put into this. And, the fact that Polaris and Chris and everything just wrapped their arms around this kid and us and did this for us. I mean, not just him, but us as a family, and brought us out there. And, they gave us star treatment from the moment we got there. I mean, we stayed at Chris's lodge, and he had us cook there for us. And, so cool. I mean, we got the star treatment, the whole 9 yards. And, Polaris set us up with their sleds. And, we didn't have anything to worry about,
so cool.
Just for this kid to not have to have anything to worry about, with all the stuff he has to worry about on a daily basis. And, for him to be able to have this experience when, you really don't know what your future might be. It's really incredible. It's really, really incredible. And for people to see this kid's heart and, and that, his love for the sport, his love for the sport, and that, he is kind of talented, he is pretty good,
That's awesome.
Because mom can say it, but, people go, yeah, your mom, of course you're going to say it, so it is really, really cool because, he's had he's had a lot of good influential people, I guess, that have helped build this, along the way. So
That's awesome.
We're very fortunate.
Yeah, no, proud mama for sure, and proud dad, I'm sure as well, and
Oh yeah,
the whole
Dad.
family, even grandpa, I'm sure too, and grandma too. So,
Yeah.
um,
Dad is, from the moment this kid was born,
yeah,
he was born in November. He was 10 pounds. He wasn't even a month old when I strapped him we took turns strapping him to us, zipping him up in my pit coat, and away we'd go on the snowmobile with him,
that's awesome.
As he got bigger, Bill would put him in the front of him on his mountain sled, and he would ride. He'd go all over the place. He'd do dives with them and climb mountains, climb hills with them, and
Yep.
he was scared of nothing.
Yeah. Well, let's go back and talk a little bit about how this whole thing started. Like we've kind of we intentionally kind of like brought people in, sucked them in with the Chris Burandts story and that experience, which was probably the highlight of the whole thing. And I wanted to make sure people understood like the gravity of where we're going with this. But let's take a pause and rewind a little bit. And how did this initially get teed up? You shared part of the story with me through some emails and some messages that you had. But am I understanding right that somebody on social media on some page like first caught wind of what Owen's story was and then teed some things up for you guys to kind of get the ball rolling? Like talk us through about kind of how it all got teed up and how you guys got to where we just talked about.
Yeah, it started, basically we met Mark Noble, who started Hooligan Sledders. We were doing trail cleanup with Mark in Seney, Michigan.
Yep.
And that's how it started our friendship, and that's how I got asked to be a part of the Hooligan Sledders group. And from there, we started planning different events, and Owen helped with the events, and Mark got to know Owen. And through that time, Owen was having different issues with his eyes, and we are in the Upper Peninsula. His doctors are in Detroit, so we have a 7.5-hour drive.
Nice.
Every 6 months. At that point, we were going every 3 months because he was having issues. And so he had asked, like, hey, what's going on with Owen's eyes? And so I told him kind of the story and stuff like that. And the next thing I know, he surprised us with this post in Hooligan Sledders about how he wanted to get Owen a new snowmobile suit.
Nice.
And because, he felt like he was a really good kid and he helped him, he was working hard, and just try to keep this kid who loves snowmobiling on the right track. And about 20 minutes later, More Freaking Power was there, and they said, we'll help him get that suit. And
That's awesome.
And then Thunder Products Clutching said, hey, we're going to set up his clutches on his snowmobile. So they went through his clutches on his snowmobile, set up his sled.
Gotcha.
And then everybody went, well, we want to do stuff too. And it grew into this giant fundraiser.
It's the community, right? I mean, the snowmobile community never fails to surprise me when it comes to this kind of amazing thing. So
the snowmobile community the outpouring of things that they did for him and the things that happened are just crazy. So
if you guys don't mind, I want to shift back over to Owen here. And so Owen, you've got this rare disease that's known as fever, right? And tell us a little bit about what it really means. You kept talking about it, but it's like a detached retina. Tell us about like which eye is affected and how does it affect your day-to-day life? Like what are the things that you have to kind of deal with on a day-to-day basis that maybe someone who doesn't have this, maybe would, or like how has it impacted your life? And what are the things that you think of are like, does it hold you back? Is it challenging? Does it like make you have to work a little harder at some things? Just talk a little bit about your experience with this rare eye disease that you're dealing with and what it means. So.
Okay. My right eye is the one that's gone completely blind now. From the very first, it wasn't 100% blind, but it was pretty bad sight. Okay. My good eye has decent vision in it, and I can see out of it, but they were both affected from the very start, but my right eye was the one that was mostly affected and was the most severe. And then, 4 years ago, I started seeing black dots, and that's when we went to the doctor, and I had to get started to have more surgeries, and they couldn't keep my retina attached, so they had to let my eye go blind. Otherwise, the surgery that they were gonna do would probably be worse for me
Gotcha.
in the future than letting it just go blind.
Okay. Maybe a silly question, maybe not, is like, what age was it very much from like, okay, you're starting to see an issue to like, now I'm blind in my right eye? Like, what was that timeline? Like, you're 16 now. Like, how many years ago did you first identify the issue? And then like, how many years did it take for you to go completely blind in that eye?
6 to 14.
Yeah,
So
six
between
to
6 years old and 14. Okay. So over
Yeah.
several years. And so you got to experience kind of at a, somewhat of a slow pace of the slow deterioration of your eye. And so do you remember like going like how did it affect your life? Like, did you find that all of a sudden you started like running into things and I'm just trying to think of day-to-day things that like, how did like your life change from before to after, and was it noticeable to you, or does it, because it was such a slow transition, you just kind of like adapted along the way?
Um, it was a pretty slow transition, but I did notice it quite a bit. When I had my uh before I went completely blind, it was not too bad. I would still move around pretty good
Okay.
and do all the things a normal kid would do: jump
Yeah.
around, run, do all that, and play. When it went completely blind, when the first time when the first day I noticed it, when it went completely blind,
Oh wow.
things did
So it almost like
seem
was like a 1 day thing where all of a sudden like, okay, today I can't see anything. Is that what you're saying happened? Like almost
it
quick.
happened in the mix of like 2 to 3 days,
Oh wow.
and then it would get completely blind.
Wow.
And then I did notice the change happen, a change.
Yeah.
It was pretty different for at first, and then after that, it got more adjusted to it and all that.
Yeah.
But I'd say I lost a little more balance than what I did have,
Yeah.
and it makes things a bit harder from previous.
Yeah.
But
Well, like depth
I still
perception is a big deal with, with two eyes. A lot of people who take it for granted that we have vision in both eyes, your depth perception is a big thing that's impacted. And like if you've ever practiced like holding your hand over one eye and then the other, like you're looking at the same thing, it changes it's weird. Like I've done it before. Like it changes the distance of like how close something seems or doesn't seem, and it can throw off what we know as our depth perception. And things like catching a ball can be an issue. Driving a car or driving a snowmobile, those things can be an issue because like, okay, how close am I to that tree? Do I got to turn around it or whatever? Have you seen where depth perception's been an issue for you, where you've like not being able to do something, or like you just had to be extra careful, or what?
um it before I went completely blind, I think my depth perception was a little bit bad, but after my eye went completely blind, I think it went back to like a better stage
Oh,
of
okay.
depth perception.
Okay.
So,
That's interesting. That's actually really interesting. Um, and so, anything else you want to share about what you deal with on a day-to-day basis, or anything else that's impacted your life personally? Because one thing I was going to highlight, and you shared with me personally, you haven't mentioned it yet, is that you've gained a new superpower along the way, which is learning how to read Braille. Right? Tell us a little bit about that experience and what that means.
yes, learning to read Braille is a very interesting concept. It's almost like a different type of code
Yeah.
that you got to read, like almost like
There's a
numbers
there's
and
a
stuff.
small chance that someone may not know what the word Braille means. Can you explain to people what Braille is, just to make sure we're set that expectation that we understand what we're talking about here? So.
So Braille is a type of writing that a blind person can read. It's in a form of dots.
Yep.
You can see them on the bathrooms things
Yep.
to let you know that what's the men's or the girls.
Yep.
That's what those dots are.
Yep.
It's to let you know if it's the boys or the girls.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dots. It basically tells you what the words are and number. It can do numbers, words, letters, all sorts of different things, meanings, and all that. Yeah, started learning that in fourth grade,
Okay.
and I've gotten to where I am now for learning Braille.
You're pretty proficient at Braille now. Like you can, if you had to, you could read like pretty consistently with reading Braille now.
Yeah, I could. I do have my challenges though. It's a lot harder because I can see out of one eye, and my feeling isn't as good as it would be if I didn't have
Yeah.
vision.
Okay.
But I can. I have good days and
Yeah.
bad days.
So I'm super curious. Like, did you learn to read Braille out of true necessity, or was it with the anticipation that you potentially could become blind completely? Like at some point, is that why you learned it, or was it become necessary because even with one eye out, you needed to learn Braille because it was helping you get through day to day?
I learned Braille because I have that possibility that I would go blind, completely blind in the
Yeah.
future,
Yeah.
possibly.
And at this point, your left eye is still fairly stable, it sounds like, and you haven't had any deterioration recently. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
Okay. And
Hmm.
so right now, the future is unknown. Like, it could start progressing, could get worse, but we don't know. You could be in this state and have good left eye your whole life, and you may not. And so you kind of got to be prepared for that. And right. So.
Yeah,
Yeah. And so
yeah.
something else you shared with me when we were talking before in kind of the pre-show conversations that we've had, Owen, is that, you know, you don't necessarily view yourself as somebody who people should feel sorry for, right? Like you kind of think of it as like, nope, I'm pretty blessed. I'm a lucky kid. I had this amazing opportunity. And I know now through some of these experiences that people can tend to be a little bit inspired by my story. And I'm leveraging that now to help inspire other people and help them realize some things about maybe their lives. So talk to us a little bit about like what you shared with me and that perspective of how you might be able to help inspire others get through their day better, and what's your message to people in general who might be thinking like, wow, this is an amazing story. So
Yeah. I just try to remember, like, you can get through the toughest times,
yeah.
even when you're down in the dumps, depressed, the worst type of day, if you just put your mind to it. If you have a little something just to do, you can go so much further in life. I try to also think of there is probably a chance that someone's always in a worse condition than
Yeah.
you, or there's something worse, somebody in a worse situation. And I just try and be positive and try to keep inspiring people to not get what your problems are or whatever to get you down, and just to take initiative to go and maybe try and do something like go and snowmobile or go and play football or go and do whatever you would like to do,
Yeah.
whatever you can think of.
Like to keep doing what you love to do, even if you have to change it up a little bit,
Yep.
Yes.
Absolutely.
but figure out a way to still keep doing what you love to do.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Nope, absolutely.
That's
And it
a
sounds
good-
like you've been
Yeah.
able to like work with some other kids, right? So it sounds like you've been doing some mentorship with other kids in your area. Can you tell us a bit about that work?
Yes. I was mentoring a kid. He could see a lot less than me. He did have a blind stick and
Okay.
all that to help him. Um, he was still, he wasn't very depressed. He's still energetic and all that, trying to have fun, be a normal kid and stuff, but he still does have his limitations and all that,
Yeah.
and just trying to help him get through
Yeah.
school and whatever else he had to
Yeah.
get done and all that.
Yep.
And I think also Owen doesn't realize, kind of the impact he has too, because he has his little group of youth riders, because he has youth rides that he does.
Nice.
And he has a little group of youth riders that he has that look up to him. But we have one of those kids who has some health issues also. And so yeah, I think he definitely inspires the kids to get better and to do better. And it's so much fun to see these kids come back every year. And, they're our next generation of riders, it's so that's super fun. And also we've been contacted by, I had a dad contact me actually after the story first broke. And the dad, he said, I just want you guys to know that my 9-year-old son had, and this was right like last April, so it probably was it was March. So it just had happened in March.
Yeah.
His son had an accident, and they were snowmobiling, and he had went into the branches of the trees, and one of the branches of the trees went through his visor of his helmet and into his eye, and he became blind in his left eye.
Wow.
And so he saw Owen's story, and he was at 9 years old, and super inspired to know that he's still going to be able to ride snowmobile, you know. And that's the other thing too, is that, you know, the doctors told Owen that, you know, like you said before, he can't play sports because, you know, his kid's quite the athlete. You know, he couldn't play sports because he did see 2 balls. He could throw the ball like crazy.
Yeah.
You know, the coaches were like, we want that kid because look at that arm he's got, you know, but he can't bat because he sees 2 balls.
Yeah.
You know,
just swing at both of them. Just swing at both of them.
Yeah. You know, so we decided at a young age, you know, he played hockey until he got to the point where they had to start checking and he couldn't play hockey anymore. You know, because of the head injury kind of stuff. And at that point we decided, you know, we are a family of snowmobilers. We love snowmobiling. We're going to snowmobile. So we did everything possible to keep him on a snowmobile. And so that's where that's how that all became.
So I'm going to take a little moment and get on a little mini soapbox of my own, and I want to share some perspective and to inspire Owen here is that I'm 48 years old now. Just had a birthday a few weeks ago, and I can tell you at this point in my life, Owen, that I have uncovered and discovered that there's not a human being on this planet that doesn't have, quote unquote, something broken about them in their life. And sometimes it's obvious, like maybe they're missing an arm or a leg, or, you know, there's some kind of an accident they've had, maybe they're in a wheelchair and it's super obvious. But in most cases, people, maybe like yourself, they have a disability that's somewhat invisible that people don't know and they don't see, right? But having people be able to speak openly about the things that have impacted them and have challenged them in their lives is really inspiration to people in general, right? And I would take this to a whole nother level and just ask everybody who's on this show watching and hearing this is the reason this story is so important to all of us, including me, is that, like, the things that are broken in our lives aren't always physical. Sometimes they're mental health issues. Sometimes they're relationship issues. Sometimes they're dealing with a loss. You know, someone in their life has got cancer that has passed away. And bottom line is, like, we're all on this planet together, and we all need to do our best to just help each other out and live our best lives and to share our stories. And, you know, there's a big foundation. Like this show and this interview has always been about snowmobile safety and education and trying to make a big difference in the sport. But what I feel like is the more important story that we always tell on this show is things like this, where we can kind of talk a little bit about like the human side of all of us and what it means to just be there for each other, you know, reach out to people and ask for help, and don't be afraid. Like, you know, we don't have to be a superhero like Owen. Like, talking about your eye is actually going to help other people. And so I know you get that already, but I just want to call that out for everybody watching, and, you know, just the whole world in general, right? Like, we all have something broken in our lives, and, you know, let's just all think about that and how we can impact each other by talking through it with each other. So what do you think of that, Owen? Is that a good message?
And, you know,
yes, very good message. I agree with that a lot.
That's awesome.
And I would say, don't take no for an answer. You know, the doctors told us that he was never going to be able to ride like this. I mean, if I show them a video of how he rides a snowmobile, they're like, what? He should not have this kind of balance. He should not be able to do this. I mean, they're just like blown away by what he can do.
Don't tell me what I can't do, right? Don't tell me what I can't do. Very good. Well, all of this happening in the snowmobile world is really no coincidence, because, Michelle, we're going to shift back over to you again and talk a little bit about this whole history of snowmobiling in this family. So tell us a little bit about yourself. And you know, we're just FYI, we're already, holy smokes, 49 minutes in, and so we've told a lot of the story already. So I don't want to go too crazy here, but let's just give a little background on your family and you growing up, and let's talk a little bit about this place that you're sitting in along the way too. We're inside of a snowmobile museum, which is no coincidence. And so tell us a little bit about the history of the family and what you guys have been involved in, and it sounds like your dad has been a foundation in this industry for a long time, right? So.
Oh yes, ever since ever, I would say. I mean, I can remember as a little girl, a little kid, we had to go, everywhere we drive, Dad would be, I spying a snowmobile somewhere, and we'd be out in the back 40 digging out some snowmobile. And I'd be like, why are we doing this? Because we're going to have a museum someday.
That's awesome.
And so, actually before all of this came about, I mean, I would dare to say that between him and his dad, they had several hundred snowmobiles. I know we've counted them before. His dad and my dad, my grandpa and him sold snowmobiles. They sold Arctic Cats and Scorpions back in the day. I grew up racing Scorpions. But, I was the cool kid because I had one of the cool sleds, in
awesome.
the 80s. I had a Scorpion,
That's awesome.
the TK 440, I raced oval back then. So, my parents were the same when I was little. I was riding sleds way bigger than me.
Yep.
And it's just part of our, it's in our blood. We live, eat, and breathe snowmobiles, basically.
Yep.
And this is now, of course, it grew into my dad dreaming of a museum, grew into this museum that a whole bunch of people got together and built this.
Awesome.
And
let's talk about it. What's the name of the museum that you're in? And let's talk a little bit about like where it's at and, how it came to be. Like you said, you got a bunch of people that came together.
It's called the Top of the Lake Snowmobile Museum.
Okay.
It started in 2007. They rented a small building in town, and it was in, I think, 2013 that they built this building that we're in right now.
Okay.
We have now 185 snowmobiles in here.
Nice.
There are 62 different brands in here right now, Dad. And
what's the newest snowmobile that's in the museum? I have to know. Is it like fairly modern or is it all really old machines?
I think it's this. Is it this Arctic Cat? We have a 2001 Arctic Cat Yellowstone Special sitting here as a comparison of sitting next to the Eliason, which is the first manufactured snowmobile made in that. So
that's awesome.
There's a little bit of a difference there.
Yeah, well, that's still over 20 years old, and so everything's considered a classic after 20 years. So it makes sense. So.
Right. Yeah, we have a special registration now for all of those snowmobiles now. So
I guess that means I'm a classic. Oh, and I'm over 20 years old now, so I'm a classic now. Is that right?
Right. Yeah. I think I'm vintage.
I'm not vintage yet. I still consider myself a classic. So awesome. Yeah. All right. Well, anything else we need to know about the museum? Like, people ever want to come visit it, or what is it open?
We're open 7 days a week.
Okay.
It's open 7 days a week. There's only 3 holidays that we're closed.
Yep.
It's open from 9 to 5, and I guarantee you, if you probably called my dad, he'd come here. He'd be here in about 10 minutes flat to open it up for you.
That's awesome.
So, both my parents are very heavily involved. They were both inducted into the Snowmobile Hall of Fame last fall.
Very cool.
And for their work here, they spend a lot of time here.
Yeah.
There's, but it's just amazing what's happened here. I mean, and how much back in the day people put together in the snowmobiling, and how much of it now still exists and stuff is kind of really amazing in itself too. Yeah. So,
well, long history of snowmobiling in the family. Anything else that like the history of the snowmobiling in the family before we kind of wrap things up? Is there anything you want to make sure gets highlighted? I know it could go on forever. I'm like you. Yeah, I could sit here and talk sleds for the next 6 hours, but I think at some point we're gonna lose people here. So,
I know, right? We do have several. We have several events that we do. There's the museum has fundraisers if anybody wants to get involved. The museum is a nonprofit. We are strictly run by fundraisers and donations and those kinds of things. We have a bridge ride where we ride the snowmobiles across the Mackinac Bridge.
Yep.
We have a swap meet. We have our annual show and ride in February.
Very good.
And then we go to different shows and stuff too. So
Awesome.
those are kind
Awesome.
of
Awesome.
super important.
Well,
And thankfully we have a very good support system here.
Yeah.
And a lot of people that are involved. So,
well, that's a perfect segue, because I think that's what we're going to talk about next is some of the people that have been supporting you along the way. And before we do that, I want to give a quick shout out to Owen. Where'd you get that sweet hat? I recognize that hat.
This is Fly High Fire Starters.
Yeah, my buddy Jason McCleary is the owner of Fly High Fire Starters, and he was a previous guest on my show. Did you ever get to watch that episode? It's a pretty great episode. So.
Yeah,
I'll have to
it
send
was.
I'll have to send it to you. We'll have to make sure you get to see it again. So
Yeah.
awesome.
So Jason has been like beyond awesome to this kid. I mean, Jason is over the top. Supported him.
There's a very similar story. Like Jason is, he was on my show and we talked about it, but he suffers from debilitating migraines and, cluster migraines and stuff like that too. And it impacts his life in a very dramatic way. And I'm sure your story very much means something to him dramatically. And so I love seeing the fact that you're wearing his hat tonight. And, didn't even know you were going to wear that hat. But tonight I was inspired, believe it or not, in the show notes. I actually hashtagged Fly High Fire Starters in the show, not even knowing you were going to wear that shirt. And I don't normally do that, but I actually been messaging with Jason the last couple of days about some other things, and I thought, I'm going to give him a little love tonight, and then to see you wearing the hat tonight, to me, that's like, it's meant to be, buddy.
Yeah. Well, it's a sign for sure. But this love that Jason has showed us is like there was no question that was the hat he was wearing tonight.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I mean, Jason specially made a wolf fire starter for Owen because wolves are Owen's favorite thing other than snowmobiles.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Yes. So someday, when he gets to design a wrap or something, that's probably going to be part of it.
Very good.
But yeah, and he not only made these special wolf fire starters, he had them delivered to Heydays by one of his friends and fellow fire starter on his motorcycle.
I actually met that guy at
storms.
Heydays. Yeah, he delivered some fire starters to some other folks too, and I heard that story. It was pretty amazing. So.
It was amazing. Yes, it was amazing that Joel did that. So,
All right.
It's just the snowmobile family is incredible.
Well, I know you have some fans out in Colorado too, and there's some people in the chat here that they've been nudging me to ask you about your trip to Colorado and something about there was a hot tub story. I'm afraid to ask. It says ask him about the hot tub in Kremling. So like, is it a family friendly appropriate story since it's a hot tub story? Like I'm always a little nervous when I hear hot tub.
That Colorado family, I don't know. They're kind of little instigators, I think.
Yeah.
Is it
those
a story
are a fun group of people.
Yeah, is it a story you want to share? They're on here watching and cheering you on. So.
Yeah, we can share it. That's fine. Well, after we went to Wyoming, our first trip, and we hung out at Crooked Creek with BJ and Nathan August Dodge. Sorry.
That was the first trip. We talked about Colorado.
Yeah,
we'll talk about both.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead. Is this the trip? Is this the trip where you met Kyle Franklin? You got to ride the turbo, or is that a different trip? Is that a whole different trip? You got way too many trips.
He's kind of been spoiled a little bit.
Yes,
spoiled little rotten little boy, right?
Yeah. The Kyle Franklin trip where I rode the turbo was the very first time I ever went out to the mountains, Wyoming.
By the way, Kyle's here watching the show tonight, and he's giving you some love in the comments too. You'll have to go back and watch them later. So,
so that trip was because Mom was going out to ride with the Rev It Up girls, who are a group of girls, amazing women. They're a group of amazing women who get out there and promote women in the sport and getting women excited about snowmobiling and teaching them how to ride in the backcountry. And
very cool.
I don't have a daughter. I got a son. So son came with in a tutu.
That's awesome. That's amazing.
They embraced him except for the one day that was the girl ladies only ride. And I had to let my 14-year-old go ride with all of the guys that came with and Kyle and Ray Everton and Steve Chandler. And those guys were so he ended up riding with them for the day, and they all came back that day like, we had so much fun watching this kid And they all let him ride their new sleds.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, one of them had a brand new Chaos. Kyle had his brand new Skidoo Factory Turbo, and Steve had his new Alpha, and
Yeah.
and that's how it all started.
And somehow at some point you ended up in Colorado in the hot tub with some folks, and you got to meet is it the Uchi?
Oh.
How do you say their last name? Is it Uchi or Ochi?
Yes,
it's Uchi.
Uchi? Okay.
Uchi.
So the Uchi family. I
Matt
see there's
Uccinero.
a Sarah on here, and there's Matt's on here. They're both watching. And so let's talk about that trip because they keep bugging us.
Yeah, so part of the fundraiser that started this year was the GoFundMe that raised $5,000 for Owen to go. Hopefully, the goal was to make his dream of riding in the powder happen.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And the Colorado family, Luke Wildman Dobbs.
He's on watching too. Luke's on here. He goes,
Luke Wildman Dobbs, the best night ride bonfire, with the fly high fire starters we've ever had in our entire lives.
Amazing.
Yes.
Awesome. We rode with the Riverton snowgoers out there. But the Colorado family met us and took us out there. And Jess LP, she gave us our place to stay. Matt Uccinero and Brad Smith and their group of snowmobilers. Chris Burgess showed up with his Vogue Turbo for Owen to ride, which gave Mom a heart attack. I'm just saying. This kid rode it like he stole it. And after the very fun day of riding and all of that, we ended up in the hot tub with Uchi, and I'm not really sure who was on there.
It was Jess LP and
Sarah
and Pat.
How big was
Owen.
this hot tub?
It was a decent size hot tub.
It was like an Olympic size swimming pool. Yeah. Awesome.
Yes.
Well, it sounds like
we met some really awesome Colorado people, and
yep. So let me just remind everybody, because I think you've just told a live large story, like what live large means. So live life to the fullest, make the most of every day, and make a difference to others, right? And Owen, you're amazing, and you're doing that. Michelle, obviously, the apple doesn't too fall from the tree. You seem to be a little bit amazing yourself, and I don't think I've met your husband yet. I think I've met you, but like your husband, obviously too. You guys have raised an amazing son, and you guys have had a great life and a lot of bright future in front of you still, it looks like. So.
Yes, I think so. I think that, as long as you work, as we tell him, you work hard, you gotta, he's got to get his school stuff going on. And I think, the possibilities are wide open, So
Very cool. Well, let's wrap it up with a quick shout out to anybody you want to say thank you to, and any sponsors that you guys have that you need to give a little recognition to. So the floor is yours.
The floor is mine. Well, we do have quite a few people to say thank you to. We just mentioned the Colorado Snowmobile family, Jess LP for helping us out. The Rev It Up girls, they helped us out in Wyoming. The Riverton Snowmobile goers helped us in Wyoming, invited us out there to ride with them. We rode in Crooked Creek. We stayed at Crooked Creek Guest Ranch. The owner of the Crooked Creek fell in love with Owen and us, and we brought one of Owen's friends with us, and Ethan had a great time out there with us. And the owner of Crooked Creek let these two boys take his Lynx and his
Skidoo Turbo.
Yeah, and he just said, "Here you go, guys, run them out of gas," and so they did.
Very nice.
I mean, just the things that happened. We got support from Rock Speed FX, Sled Solutions, Dead Boy Traction Products, Straight Line Performance and RSI Racing, Caliber Products, Legend Trailers,
yes,
Greenback Graphics, just to shorten them all up a little bit. Cheetah Factory Racing, of course, Tubi and A-Bomb Goggles, set him up with their military grade goggles for which is for safety for his eyes, which is fabulous. 509 and Brandon Baird got him set up with a brand new carbon fiber helmet with the size adjustable stuff, so he can,
I can take my liner out and adjust the size for it.
And then, of course, we have to thank the Polaris ambassadors. I mean, Kevin Boggs is the one who kind of spearheaded.
Kevin's in the chat. He's watching tonight too, cheering you guys on. So
yeah, he kind of spearheaded, sending Owen's story, forwarding it on to the Polaris ambassadors.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm friends with Tanya Nelson, and
she's on watching as well.
I know Tanya, she's awesome, right? And several of the ambassadors reached out to us, and of course, Matt and Brad and all of that when we met them in Colorado. And gosh, I hope I'm not forgetting anybody, but Kristen Mackey-Zurin, she reached out to us too. She's a watercross, she's an awesome girl.
Good old KZ.
Yeah, right. The other part is the other crazy stories is, we broke down on the way to Wyoming. And, we got on the horn, and I thought, here we are in the middle of nowhere in South Dakota. What are we going to do? Yeah. And, this is, just about the end of the COVID era. And we call, 24-hour roadside service that isn't coming.
No worries.
Right? There's no such thing. It's not coming. They tell us, well, you got to turn around and come back 2 hours, and we can get you on Tuesday.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, we got a broken axle. That's not happening. Right? And I am not screwing up our vacation or our ride to ride in Wyoming. Yeah. So it started with a call to the South Dakota Snowmobile Association. And then, of course, I have Ethan with us in the truck, and he's a farmer from our hometown of Vingadine. And he's like, all we need to do is get a hold of one of these farmers out here. I bet you they got everything we need. And I went, ding, ding, ding. My brother happens to work with Lucas Oil tractor pulling in Nebraska, and he's the event director, and he kind of knows everybody. And so I messaged him, and I said,
"Do you know anybody in
Kurt,
this area?
What are the chances you know somebody?" And he's like, "I'll post it and see what happens." And 20 minutes later, he had a phone number for me.
Wow.
Alan Umner had messaged me and said, "Hey, I got this place you can go if you need help." And so he had called me my brother messaged me with another number. I called that number. The guy from the Outlaw Tractor Pullers, it was his nephew. He's like, "I'm in my truck. I'm 10 minutes away. I'm coming to get you. I'm going to take you to my work," which was Mitchell Livestock. And they had like 4 welders in there. It was crazy. They fixed this all up. Meanwhile, we're talking to the person in there that was helping us weld the trailer and all that. His granddaughter had just had eye surgery, and it was like we were all standing there crying our eyes out because he's telling this story as we're telling Owen's story, and it was like one of those, wow, we were meant to be here right now at this moment,
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna say one more thing that I referenced earlier. I'm gonna come back to it, is this idea that everybody's broken, whatever type of thing. But here's the other thing I'll tell you, Owen, and you're already experiencing it. And I know it'll make sense to you, is that the things in our lives that try to take us down and to slow us down and to be quote unquote challenges in our lives, if you get the right attitude about it and you move forward and kind of overcome these hurdles, they legitimately and literally will become your superpowers. And you can already feel that, right? Like, instead of it being now a disability, now it's become a superpower in a way for you to connect with people in a new, meaningful way that's making a difference in people's lives. And so, I'm a big believer in that. And, another superhero out on the snow. Can't beat that.
Yeah. Right? Yeah.
Awesome.
The amazing things that people did, Bunk's Barbecue showed up. Bunk's Barbecue hooked us up with dinner when we got to Wyoming, and we were riding with the Riverton Snowgoers. And
nice.
It was just so incredible. And then for Mom, it's just so emotional, and it's so awesome because I have the children. I'm shaking because I just know there's all of these people now that are out here looking out for this kid.
Yep.
They're out here. All of them are looking out for this kid now. And I just can't say enough thank yous to everybody for all this stuff that's happened and everything that everybody's done.
Well, it's an honor to have you guys on the show tonight. I very much appreciate you coming on. And, Michelle, I have to laugh because, like, I know how nervous you were coming into the show and, like, getting on and talking about this stuff too. And here we are an hour and 10 minutes later. And how do you feel now? It wasn't terribly hard. Any advice for anybody who wants to come on John's Live Large Universe show? Like, for someone who's extremely nervous to come on the air now that you've done it?
Oh, it's super easy. There's no excuses. No excuses. You should absolutely do it.
Yeah. So
Yes.
shout out to anybody out there who's got a story to share, and I'm happy to have you on. And I've got plenty of room in the next several months to have some more guests on. I've got, I think, next week booked, and then I've got, I think, 1 weekend in December booked. But we've got definitely openings coming up. So as you can see, we can tell some amazing stories and make a difference in people's lives. And any final words? I'm afraid to ask because we're already an hour 10 minutes in. But
No further one. It's all
any
you.
any
Huh?
final
Oh,
any
no.
any final words before we say sayonara to everybody tonight?
I think one of the things Owen said to me one time, I wanna say, and it says this is one thing he told me. He says, "Mom, I just want everyone to know that they should never give up on their dreams, and whenever they're feeling down, to just remember that it doesn't matter who they are or who they want to be. There's always going to be tough times, but they should always fight through it and remember that there's always better times ahead."
Well spoken. Well spoken. Awesome. Well, you guys are part of my family now too, and hopefully I'm part of your family. And let's get out.
Wow.
And, I mean, we're at the beginning of the most amazing season to come, right? And so,
Right.
snowmobile season's here. We're all going to be riding very soon if we're not already. And let's tell everybody good night. So wave it out, everybody. We'll talk to you later.
Right.
God bless
Yeah.
everybody, and have an amazing night.
Mhm.